Understanding Drivers of Donor Engagement. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the fundraising school, and I'm joined today by Mark Ottoni-Wilhelm. Dr. Ottoni-Wilhelm is a professor at Indiana University and an affiliate faculty member at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, in which the fundraising school resides. And Mark, so great to have you back with us on the Fundraising Schools podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for the invitation. It's good to see you.
Mark has 3 decades of experience researching donor behavior, and one of his more recent projects is Understanding Drivers of Donor Engagement. Mark, help our audience understand the reasons behind this study, please.
Sure. But before we get going into the study, let me say this is a joint product of several colleagues at the school. So Una Osili, Xiaonian Ku, Sasha Zarens, Diantha Daniels, and Adrian Kaluger. So it was a team effort. So the work I'm going to describe and we're going to talk about came from all those people.
Well said.
All right. So the question about what drives donor engagement is important because of a few things that are going on. One thing that's going on is that the percentage of people in the United States that give to charities is on the decline. Now, the dollars given by that smaller group are kind of holding steady, going up even, but the number of people that are engaged in giving to charitable organizations is going down. Kind of more troubling is that pattern is concentrated among younger cohorts of people. And so that gives us concern that giving to charitable organizations is becoming less inclusive, not widespread across all American families. So that's what motivated the research. And part of what we bring to the project is a gap that exists in what we know about. On the academic side, there are a lot of studies that describe motivations to give. But there's a mismatch between those studies and what practitioners are doing in terms of soliciting gifts from people. So what we're trying to do at the school is bring those two sides together, as we always do, trying to bring academic people together with practitioner people to advance the missions of nonprofit organizations. So those are the two things that were driving our interest in this project. And so what we did was the following. We set up an experiment where we used fundraising materials from an organization that were created by a nonprofit organization. And we put those into a controlled experiment where we could then measure how effective each of those fundraising messages were in inducing people to, at the end of the experiment, want to establish a longer-term connection to the charity. So the thing we were going to measure at the end of the experiment was whether the participant in the experiment clicked on a link that then took them to the nonprofit organization. And that link could, there were two kinds of links. One link was to sign up for the organization's email newsletter. And the second link was to make a small donation, a $5 donation to the nonprofit. And so that's what we were going to measure. But before people got the chance to do that, we randomly assigned them to see one of 2 fundraising messages. And then a third of the group of people were randomly assigned to a control group. And we then showed them the messages. The next thing we did was we measured a bunch of responses to those measures. We measured emotional responses and sort of moral principle responses. We measured the emotional responses were empathy and also negative feelings of distress or guilt or sadness. So 2 types of emotions. And then the moral principles were not feelings, but whether or not the person at the time was thinking about moral principles to help people in need. So that was the setup of the experiment.
So a couple of different variables here. One is the type of message that is sent out in a way to either attract new donors, but especially to retain our current donors. So donor stewardship leading to donor retention. And then there were the vehicles. The messages were sent out by video or email or
That's right.
through in 3 sentences of written text. And so again, we have these 2 types of messages and these 3 types of vehicles. Mark, what did you find?
Yeah. Okay. So everybody in the experiment saw the sort of 3-letter or 3-sentence description of what the charity does, what its mission was. And then, as you say, um, a third of the participants saw a video. The video showed the nonprofit doing its work in action, the people that work for the nonprofit engaging with the clients of the nonprofit. It was a 1 minute and 43-second video, so not very long. The email described the hardships faced by the clients whom the nonprofit is serving, and let the reader of the email know what they could do to help. And then the control group didn't see either of those, but all 3 groups got the same sort of information description, 3 sentences about what the nonprofit does. Now, as you say, there's interest in both new donors and recurring donors. Most of the people that ended up in this experiment, kind of by our design, were cold list people. They were people that had not heard of this nonprofit before. So setting up kind of a challenge to make that first connection. That's the idea.
So Mark, what did you find?
Well, Bill, there were 2 kinds of results that we were going after. One kind of result was which of these 2 messages worked better, which was more effective. And the second kind of result was why. So let's talk about which message worked better. The video message worked better. So the video message caused. Okay, let me take a step back and say these are cold list donors. So the connection rates are going to be pretty low. So for instance, in the control group, only 10% of the participants in the control group at the end of the experiment decided to connect with the nonprofit organization. But the participants who saw the video, a much larger 14.7% chose to connect with the nonprofit. So that 4.4 percentage point increase is a 43% in the connection rate relative to that 10% in the control.
Right.
So that's a big change. Now the participants who saw the email, also more of them wanted to connect with the nonprofit than in the control group, but the percentage point increase was much smaller, a 2.6 percentage point increase, and that's inside the margin of error. So can't really be sure that's a result that occurred purposely. Could have occurred. That result could have occurred by chance. It's very unlikely that the video result, the 4.4 percentage point increase, occurred by chance. So that tells us which of the 2 messages was more effective. It's the video message. But why? So to turn to the why question, we look at the emotional responses and the moral principle responses. So in terms of empathy, both the video and the email increased the empathy being felt by the participants in the experiment. The big difference came in the participants' feelings, negative feelings. Although the video did increase the negative feelings felt by the participants somewhat, the email message really increased those negative feelings. So we're going to come back to that, but that's the direction we think, maybe to jump to the takeaway point that we'll discuss at the end of our time together, is for nonprofit organizations, when you're designing fundraising messages, to be aware of unintentional negative feelings that message might evoke. So we'll come back and talk about that at the end.
Well, that's great wisdom, Mark. And, you mentioned about so much of the study focused on attracting new donors. That is a question at the fundraising school we receive all the time, is how can I find new donors? And then How can I retain new donors? And we're seeing the power of video. We are seeing the influence of email, although not quite as significant. And of course, we want our donors to enjoy the joy of giving and not fundraise on guilt or negative feelings. And this study is helping point us in those directions. You also had some differences related to gender, right? That men and women reacted differently to these
That's right.
messages and to these vehicles. What did you find?
That's right. And so, and in fact, what we found, differences between women and men in the results reinforced our thinking that that the thing to really pay attention to are the negative feelings. So now I said that the video didn't increase negative feelings very much, but that's where the difference between women and men were. The video did not increase women's negative feelings at all. But for men, the video did increase their negative feelings substantially. And the video was effective on raising the connection rate of women, but not men. So that again suggests two things. First of all, that the same message, the video, can have really heterogeneous effects depending upon the characteristics of the person receiving the message, in this case, women or men. The second thing it suggests is that, yes, the unintentional increase in negative feelings are an important thing to keep track of in fundraising messages. They can unintentionally undercut the effectiveness of the message.
So, Mark, I can hear our participants from the fundraising school in our courses and in our webinars, and they're asking, okay, tell me about this video. Was it 5 minutes long? Was it 30 seconds long? Was it professionally produced? Can I just produce this on my phone and send it via text and email? What were some of the traits and characteristics of the video itself? Because fundraisers are going to be able to enjoy these positive effects.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great questions. So, first of all, it was professionally produced by the nonprofit organization, and you can sense that, right? It's not just somebody holding up a phone. It's short. It's 1:43. So I'd say no longer than that. That's a long enough to get the point across, not too long to be boring.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. It showed the positive impact the nonprofit was having in the lives of the clients that they serve. And you saw the clients enjoying themselves, enjoying life, despite their need, which was the video does not shy away from showing that, but it's not what's in the forefront. So one way to say it is that the video projects the need with a light touch, but the impact of the organization with a heavy touch. It might be that the email is the other way around. It puts forward the need with a heavier touch, then it's able to it's unable then to get the impact touch even heavier.
Mark, how can fundraisers understand these findings and implement these findings in the broader context of many ways to be in communication with potentially new donors and their current donors? Because, of course, the face-to-face meeting is still important. The personal phone call can still be effective. We can still write an effective fundraising letter or stewardship letter, special events to stay in front of people, all of these different types of things. There's no ever just, one magic wand solution here. How can these findings be understood in a fundraiser's broader portfolio of vehicles for staying in touch with donors?
Yeah, I think the message from this research is to be aware of the emotional and moral responses that donors and potential donors will have to your messages, to your conversations. So in terms of the donors we're talking about now, these are everyday donors, so to speak, and cold list donors. Look at the messages you're about to send out and do some analysis about what you think the emotional and moral principle responses will be to those messages. And there are a few ways you could do that. One way is that you could take the messages and do what we did, run a small experiment and ask people to give you their responses to these messages. You can do focus groups to do that. Now that costs money. So one thing a nonprofit could do would be to partner with an academic person like me or someone else who's perhaps got some funds and interested in doing these kinds of experiments. Another thing you could do is a more informal approach, which would be to show the messages to friends, people who work in the nonprofit, board members of the nonprofit, get their emotional responses and moral responses to the messages. And just be on the lookout for responses. Of course, you want the message to evoke empathy, but be on the lookout for responses that unintentional or messages that unintentionally evoke responses of negative feelings.
Mark Ottoni-Wilhelm, demonstrating his research expertise, a broad context, 3 decades of research into donor behavior, and now updated in this study, understanding drivers of donor engagement. This research and all of our schools' research is available free of charge on our website at philanthropy.iui.edu. Scroll across that top toolbar, you'll see the word research, pull down the menu, and you'll find the various research studies. And I just have to point out, if you are ready for that next step in your academic career, and you're thinking about that master's degree, or you have the graduate degree and you're thinking about the doctoral degree, these are the types of ways we think about in-depth understanding of philanthropy, generosity, donor behavior, so many other aspects of philanthropy as part of the human condition. And our master's degree is available entirely online, as is our professional doctoral degree is available entirely online. And that information is also available on our website. Now, practitioners looking to implement research-based techniques, the fundraising school is the place to be. Wherever possible, our curriculum is research and evidence-based, thanks to experts like Mark and others in the field doing similar work. We have nearly 24 courses. They lead to 4 different certificates. We're available in 8 U.S. cities, and we also can be online anywhere around the world. We can customize our curriculum just for you, for your board, your nonprofit, your association, your region, your country. Just give us that challenge. We're glad to put that curriculum together for you. We have quarterly webinars, these free podcasts, and our expertise gathered in our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, now out in its 5th edition. Again, that website, philanthropy.iui.edu, and then put a / the fundraising school to find us here for the fundraising school. So grateful for our guest, Mark Ottoni-Wilhelm, on a podcast produced by Mike Anthony and Jennifer Boffman. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. You are now more fully informed on this first day from the fundraising school.